It's Jen, and I'm here today to do something a little bit different. In today's podcast episode, we're going to talk about some of the common questions I get around school. So I actually went through and I jotted down some of the comments, some of the questions that I've been getting through social media or through the podcast or through emails. People have been reaching out. Parents just like you have been asking some questions about school. And there are some common themes. There are some questions that I get over and over again. So this is kind of a grab bag episode of everything back to school.
Every time Jen Dean speaks, I can see hope, knowledge, expertise, wisdom, and love.
When Jen Dean speaks about parenting, we make sure that we are there to listen because we know we will get valuable advice.
Families Matter Most with Jen Dean.
She doesn't just give skills for us to be better parents, but she teaches us how to reach our children's hearts. And at the end of the day, that's what truly matters.
I'm Jen Dean. I am a family coach. I work with parents. I work with moms and dads to help everything run smoother at home. I don't know about you, but some days do you question, am I doing the right thing? Am I ruining my kids? Am I reaching their hearts? Like I want them to be good. I want them to obey and I want them to listen and I want them to stop fighting with their brothers and sisters. But I also want them to be good humans and I want them to be good people and I want to teach them character. And it's a lot. It's a lot. They are the most precious things in our lives. And if you're like me, I'm sure you are, we spend a lot of time worrying about whether or not we're doing the right thing, particularly, I think, around back to school. Every decision is really hard. And when we see our kids struggle, sometimes it's difficult to know what to do. So I want to share with you some of the common themes, the challenges that so many families have. You're not alone. And I'll give you a couple of strategies that you can use right now to make a difference with your kids in the whole realm of school. First of all, fear and anxiety. A lot of parents reach out and say, hey, my child has a lot of fear and anxiety around going to school. They don't want to go. It's a big deal. They're crying. They're angry. I'm dragging them out of the car every day. Drop off is horrible. I hate it. I feel like I'm a monster and my kids never want to go to school. I get it. I've been there. My youngest in particular used to have these like big crocodile tears and then he would pet my cheek. I'm not even joking. He'd pet my cheek and say, Mama, I don't want to go. And I caved a lot of the time. I 100% I did. I'd say, okay, come on, let's just go home, which we all know probably makes it worse tomorrow because then they're going to try even harder. I get that. But what I can tell you is that it's very, very normal for our kids to have some fear and anxiety. What we don't want to do is minimize it. This is common. We don't want our kids to be upset. So we'll say things like, don't think about it. Just don't worry about it. Just forget about it. Or we'll minimize it and say, no, that's silly. That will never happen. That's not true. But we're minimizing their fears. We're minimizing some of their feelings, their emotions. And what I would encourage you to do is not to minimize that. It's hard to sit with our kids when they're having these feelings, but if you could just take a breath and say, that would be hard. It would be hard to go somewhere if you were scared to go. You don't have to agree with them. We're not saying that, yes, those terrible things you're imagining will happen. We're not saying that, but we are saying, it's hard to do things when we're scared, isn't it? And instead of minimizing it, something else we can do with the best of intentions is distract our kids. Oh, don't think about it. Here, come, let's go get a snack. Let's get a cookie. Or, you know what? Just think happy thoughts. It's not going to happen. You go watch TV. Or here's my phone. You can play a game. We want to encourage our kids to not think about those things, which is distraction. We don't want them to think about those things because we genuinely don't want them to be upset. But by minimizing or distracting, the message we're sending our kids is, I don't want you to come to me with these feelings. It's not that our kids aren't going to feel them. It's that they won't come to us when they feel them. So instead, don't minimize it. Don't distract it. Just take a breath or give them a hug and say, so you're feeling scared? What are you scared about? And let them start to process verbally. I mean, some kids can't do it, but lots of kids can, and this can be helpful. So let's not minimize their feelings. Let's hear them first. Let's connect. Let's hear their feelings. Let's hear what they're thinking. What are they afraid of? And then what I like to do is encourage, okay, So that terrible thing, what if you go to school and you don't have any friends? What if you go to this activity and you don't know anybody? What if the teacher doesn't like you? All of these things, okay? I'll sit with you in that. But now let's be intentional about going to the other side. Okay, that would be really scary. And if that happened, we would work on it. We would find a solution together. You're not alone. But now let's imagine if everything was to go perfectly. What if, instead of all of the negative things, what if you went to school and your new best friend was there waiting for you? What if this teacher is your favorite teacher ever and you have the best year? What if you go to this activity and you fall in love with it and you realize, I want to play soccer for the rest of my life? What if it's the best thing ever? Do you see what I'm doing here? I'm not ignoring the negative, but I'm also intentionally spending time in the positive. And that's a helpful technique. I encourage you to do that. It's not always easy because it means we have to be okay to sit with some of those things. Something else, 9-year-old, let's say Grayson, for example, he's nervous about trying out for the school play, or maybe, auditioning for something, or maybe participating on a sports team. He's nervous about it. What if it doesn't go well? What if I don't make the team? What if I'm the worst player on the team? What if I don't get a part in the play? All of these legitimate fears. What can we do? You can go through, you can role play. Okay, so what will you do if you go and look on the list and your name's not there? What can we do? We'll take a breath. We might have a tear. Maybe we will have a tear there, or maybe we'll go somewhere private and have a tear, and we will be okay. We'll come home. It will be sad. It'll be hard, but we will be okay in the end. Now, what if you go and you see that your name is on the list and you did make the team? And how would that feel, right? So we're encouraging our kids to actually go to both ends. If you're going to go to the negative extreme, we have to also be fair. Let's go to the positive extreme. Now, parents will say, yes, Jen, but we did have a really hard year last year. Last year, my child struggled. There were some issues, maybe some bullying, some things went on, and it was really difficult. Okay, let's role play that. It can be hard for our kids to know when to go to the teacher and when not to. So let's role play that out too. When do we go? When do we get help? What are some common scenarios that are happening for your child? And let's role play it through. What do we do? Even as parents, even for us, when do we step in? When do we advocate? When do we initiate a meeting? Versus, right, when do we coach our child to work on it themselves? And that's going to be different for every situation and different for your child. And, it's always going to be a specific situation, whatever you're dealing with. But know that role playing can be really useful if your child is nervous about going into something like that. Bullying, I do want to say bullying, if that is an issue, if it has been an issue or a fear for you or your children, reach out to the teacher. I think this is a good tip all the time. And I have parents that's in here somewhere in this list, it's here, but that's a strong tip, is reach out to the teacher early. You want your child's teacher to know you, to know your face, to know your name, and not just when something's going wrong. You can get ahead of things. You could reach out to your teacher right now and say, hey, just wanted to connect, ask how things were going. My child is really strong in this area, but he's struggled in this area. This is hard for him. Or sometimes, at recess, I know he has a hard time stopping what he's doing and coming in. That's something we're working on at home. How's that going for you? Being that person to tell your teacher that we're on the same team here. I'm a support, that we're in this together. I'm not here to vilify you. We're going to work on this. But you're also letting the teacher know that you're a person that will do their part. They can work with you. They can communicate with you, and you are going to do the work, and you do want to see things happen for your kid, and you are wanting results. So that tells your teacher that you are a safe place, right? That you are a person, a parent that they can come to when there is an issue, and you're not going to overreact. You're not going to move into blaming or victimizing, that you're going to say, okay, what can we do? Let's take responsibility for what's ours, right? And how can we reconcile this? How can we make it better? How can I help my child? So just by reaching out early, you're in fact telling your teacher quite a lot about your style of parenting. So I recommend you do that. And then as a side tip, this is something that I just personally recommend, is that you get to know your child's secretary or receptionist, whoever whoever is in the office, whoever's in the main office, that person has a lot of power. That person can often direct which classroom your child might end up in, who they get as a teacher. They might be able to shift and notice. And if you have a relationship with that person that you've built, not just complaining, but a relationship that you've built, letting them know that you're a support, that you're there and you'll be helpful wherever you can. And then you go to them and say, hey, you know what? I noticed that these two, like my child and this person, they are like oil and vinegar, oil and water. They don't connect. They don't click. It always goes bad. It's not a great dynamic. You know, it'd be really good if these two were not in the same classroom. Things like that, they can go over really, really well. So that's just a side tip that I would suggest. I would strongly recommend you get to know the office, because that receptionist, that secretary has a lot of power and you want them on your side. So I know this is this bad advice? So send them flowers, mark when it's like secretary day or receptionist day or admin person day, and make sure that they're getting the chocolates and they're well taken care of. If you do some kind of Christmas gift or something, or a thank you gift at the end of the year, make sure that they are getting something, because like I said, they are people to have on your team. Now, let's go back to some fear and anxiety. So I have a comment here from another parent who says, my child has a really hard time going to sleep at night. So this person has a 7-year-old. Hey, side note, I get more phone calls from parents of 7-year-olds than any other age. So if you are a parent of a child around 7, maybe 6, maybe 8, I would 6 to 8, somewhere in there, just know if you feel like your child is kind of regressing, they've gone backwards, what's going on? What happened to my kid? All of a sudden, they were doing so great, but then bam, now they're having tantrums. There's anger, there's tears, there's drama. You're not alone. More phone calls of 7-year-olds than any other age. And I think it's a combination of things. I think it's moving into full day, 5-day-a-week school. So regardless of what your child was doing in kindergarten, whether it was every second day or half days, the fact is it's doubling for them, right? Effectively, grade 1 means double, and it shifts. It's not so much about playtime anymore. Now it's you sit at your desk and you're expected to do a lot more work. It's a lot harder. It's a lot longer. Lots of kids have a hard time with this. It is a huge transition. They are exhausted physically, mentally. Their brains are mush by the end of the day. And you'll notice that pickups can be a lot harder than drop-offs, right? Our kids are just done. So one thing that I do encourage, I know I'm still on the 7-year-old rant, but one thing I do encourage is that if possible, you would reduce all activities, anything extra, until at least after Christmas. Just give them this time to adjust. They're going to be extra tired. You're probably going to have more behavior issues. It's going to be a bit of a challenge for you. So it's a lot easier to deal with this stuff when you're not trying to also be at hockey or soccer or dance or piano. So please, for grade 1, age 7, please do not pack your kids' schedule at least until after Christmas. I would love it if they had that time. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. But for age 7 in particular, please give them that time to adjust and get the extra rest and sleep and downtime that they need. But back to fear and anxiety. So a parent said, my 7-year-old is not wanting to go to bed. There's a lot of anxiety, lots of fear. They don't want to be alone. They don't like the dark. It's really hard. So to do with school, this is what I would suggest is don't pack anxiety with anxiety. So if your child is already not loving the idea of going to sleep alone by themselves in the dark, away from you, let's not also talk about school. Okay, let's not also, good night, love. I'm not going to see you now for 8 hours. You're going to be alone in the dark. We're away from us. But let's also talk about, school, where you're also going to be away from us and you're going to be by yourself. And it's also scary for you. Let's not talk about school. Let's not pack the backpack just before bed. Let's not get the school clothes out just before bed, because what we're doing then is piling in more and more of these anxious things. So it becomes even more difficult for your child to then lie there and fall asleep, because it's almost like introducing it. It would be like if you were just about to fall asleep and somebody said, "You know what? Let's talk about your biggest fears. Let's talk about all the things you're scared of." And then we say, "Okay, good night, bye." And then what would you do? You would lie in bed thinking about those things, and it would be hard for you to sleep, because it would be like someone introduced these topics to you just before bedtime. You know, my husband, who edits these podcasts, he likes to do that. Just as I'm falling asleep, he'll say, "Oh, Jen, let's talk about our budget." I'm like, no, we're not talking about money. We're not talking about finances right now, because then I'm up thinking, are we doing the right thing? Have we saved enough for our kids? It's terrible. It's a bad idea. So, Sean, I know you're listening to this. No more talking about hard things at bedtime. Let's not do this to our kids. So pack the backpack during a good time of day, not a hard time of day. Like, do it maybe right after school. They have their snack, and then we're going to get the backpack all ready for tomorrow. Then we're going to maybe pick out the clothes, do all that hard stuff so they don't have to think about it again. And then bedtime is just bedtime. How about that? Something that you can do also to help with school. This is called bridging, by the way. So it's an interesting technique. I learned it from Dr. Gordon Neufeld out in the Neufeld Institute in BC. And he is like world-renowned child psychologist that helps kids with all kinds of these struggles. But this is something he shared. It's called bridging. And you can use this even for school. So in the morning, let's say your child is nervous or hesitant, doesn't want to go to preschool, daycare, school, whatever that is, then what you can do is get the table ready with snack. Okay, so when we're going to go to school, and then after school, look, let's get our snack ready. Let's get a granola bar or a piece of fruit. You could put an apple on the table and say, this is what we're going to have for our snack time. And then maybe let's get a toy and put it on the table or beside the table. And this is what we're going to play with. And then maybe go get a book and put it there. And we're going to read this book together, and we're going to have a little snuggle, and it's going to be lovely. We're going to have such a nice time when I see you after school. Notice that we're talking over the hard thing to get to the next good thing. Now, we do that, you and I, whenever we say goodbye. What do we say? See you tomorrow. I'll see you later. I'll see you at 5 o'clock. I'll see you. We do this automatically. So psychologically, we're kind of created to want to get through the hard thing until we meet again, until we see each other again. So we can do this with our kids, and it's helpful. So in the morning, we get the table ready. We talk about when I see you next. And when we drop our kids off at school, we can do the same bridging technique. We say goodbye. I love you. You're wonderful. Hey, I'm going to have a good joke for you after school. I'm thinking of a good joke for you. Or when I see you next, we're going to go to the park today. Or when I see you next, we're going to go home and have that snack and read that book. Notice we're already talking about when we see each other again. That's called bridging. You can also use objects to help with bridging. So I read somewhere that you could sew a button into your child's pocket and they could reach in and feel this button anytime. I think that's awesome. But if you're like me, you're like, yeah, that's great, but I'm just never going to do it. I'm going to buy the buttons and then they're just going to sit there forever, and I'm going to mean to do it, but never actually get around to sewing in a bunch of buttons. So I say you just go to the dollar store, buy a whole big giant bag of buttons, and just put one in their pocket, and whatever. There's going to be buttons lost. That's fine. Every day you can pick a new button, and maybe that's part of your breakfast routine. You have your breakfast, and then your child, maybe little Timmy, picks a button for the day, and that can be their button. And maybe you could kiss the button, and he could kiss the button, and you could push it on your cheek, and he could push it on his cheek, and then he puts it in his pocket. And whenever he's thinking of you, he can reach his hand in and he can feel that button, and it would feel like a kiss from mom or dad. Isn't that sweet? That's really sweet. Come on. He could put it in his pocket, or he could put it in a little pocket in his backpack. And whenever he's feeling it, he can open up his backpack and he can see a button. If he wanted to, he could add a button to it every day, and he could see that little collection of kisses, of buttons grow and get larger. So, do you see what's happening? Whenever he's feeling like he's missing mom or dad, he can feel the button. He can look at the button. He can think about the button. You know where I'm going with this. That's another form of bridging. It's helping to transition. You know, that's one option that can help with that. Let me see some more comments. Parents of 7-year-olds, no extra activities until after Christmas. Something else that can be really helpful is if your child, if you notice it gets harder as the week goes on, maybe your child gets more tired. Maybe it just feels like 5 days in a row of school is a lot for your kids, then I recommend a pajama night. I think it's just a nice way to split up the week, and I like the regularity of it. So I would encourage that on maybe Wednesday or Thursday, you just call that pajama night, and it would be really great if you can do this. See, this is partly why I recommend fewer activities. But let's say every Wednesday or Thursday night is pajama night. You come home, you get into your pajamas early, maybe right after school, you have your bath, you get into your PJs and you build a fort and you just stay home. You just stay in the basement or stay in your living room. You build the fort. And I would love it if supper could be easy and the same every time. So maybe it's spaghetti night. Maybe everyone loves spaghetti. Sometimes pizza night. I know a lot of families like to do Friday night pizza night. But hey, you know what? You could switch it up and have pajama night as pizza night. You could have cereal. You know what? You could have a veggie tray and cereal and make it super easy for everyone. Notice this is supposed to be easy for mom and dad too. Maybe mom and dad need a pajama night. Maybe grilled cheese, like maybe frozen, I don't know, chicken nuggets and fries. Maybe that's what you're going to do every Wednesday or Thursday night. And it's a pajama night. You get all the hard stuff done early, any baths, any school stuff. And then everyone is ready for bed super early. And then you get a good night's sleep. I love that it can become a routine. And so then kids are going to start school on Monday. And then you can say, oh, 2 more days till pajama night. Notice, instead of 4 days until the weekend, 4 days is a long time to a little person. So 2 days till pajama night. Oh, tomorrow night's pajama night or tomorrow night's pizza night. Whatever that is, something to break up that kind of monotony of day after day after day can be helpful. That's why I recommend that it's a regular thing. It becomes part of a routine and your kids could look forward to it. Something else. A parent reached out because their child was struggling. They were getting into some trouble, some behavioral issues, a class clown. Anybody? I was very talkative. Is anyone surprised? No. Nobody's surprised. I was a talker. I used to get in trouble for talking too much in class. Well, another mom reached out, same thing. And now this is where it's going to be a huge benefit if you've got that connection with the teacher, because you can have more communication back and forth. Okay, this is what we're doing at home. What do you suggest? What are you doing at school? How can we align and make sure that we're on the same team? All of these things are helpful. But here's something maybe you haven't considered. Is what is the last thing you say to your child when you say goodbye? Is it have fun? Is it, for a lot of parents, the very last thing we say to our kids is, okay, bye, I love you, have fun. But is that the goal? Is the goal of school to have fun? Is that the number one thing we want for our kids? Sometimes without even realizing it. I think some of the messaging we're sending our kids is that the number one goal of this event should be fun. It should be fun. And so then we send our kids and then they get in trouble if they have too much fun. So I want to just encourage you to think about what you're saying to your kids and how you're setting up school for them. Are you setting it up to that it's supposed to be this fun place? Because if so, then it could be encouraging more misbehavior if our kids are just wanting to goof off, if our kids are just wanting to have fun. So you could decide to have that conversation with your kids and say, okay, the goal of school is, right, to learn and to learn character, to learn how to listen, to learn how to do the school things and to maybe to be kind, to be a good friend. Are these the goals? To learn how to be respectful? Like, what are the goals of school? And then the last thing you say, maybe it shouldn't be have fun. Maybe it should be learn something new today, or be a good friend today, or listen to your teacher, or be respectful. Like, you decide what you think your child needs to work on the most, but make sure you're setting that up. And then when you see them again, you could say, how was your day? You know, it's so wonderful to see you. Did you learn something new today? Were you a good friend today? Were you kind? Were you respectful? Did you listen to the teacher? Notice that sounds so much better than did you have fun? Because it is about way more than just fun. Some signs. What are some symptoms, Jen? Question. That my kids are nervous to go to school. My child isn't talking about it at all. That's a bit of a red flag for me. And I would say, absolutely. That's so smart. Interesting. Some kids talk and talk and talk, and they'll tell you everything that they're nervous about. They'll tell you all their hopes and dreams and everything that's going on in their life. But some kids absolutely do not talk about it. And that's a sign. Like, what is the thing your child doesn't want to talk about? Maybe that's a symptom. Maybe there's something going on under the surface there. Maybe there's so much fear there that they feel like they can't even talk about it. And it can be hard for us. We're busy. I 100% get it. We're busy and I've missed so many things. But one of my kids, that is a huge red flag is wait. What is the thing he's not talking about? This event is coming up and he hasn't said a word about it. I know there's something going on there and I'm going to initiate a hard conversation, right? Because our job is to help our kids figure out how to manage some of these feelings. So we might have to have a difficult conversation. Now you might ask, I had a mom reach out because her child was nervous about school, but didn't really know how to talk about it. And this child was quite young. So maybe preschool, maybe daycare, maybe kindergarten, grade 1. This child really didn't have the vocabulary, the words to process his emotions. And so what I recommended the mom do is use a teddy bear. How does Teddy feel about going back to daycare? You know what? There's school tomorrow. How does Teddy feel about going to school? Is Teddy nervous? Is Teddy excited? Is Teddy scared? What's going on? And oftentimes, even our young kids can talk about feelings through Teddy. And it's just so fascinating that maybe they can't quite process it themselves, but if they can take a step back from the situation and maybe remove some of themselves from it, they can talk about their feelings through Teddy. Teddy's really scared to go to daycare because Teddy's afraid that nobody will play with him. Oh, fascinating. And then we can do the other things. And well, what could Teddy do if he went somewhere? Let's pretend Teddy's going to daycare. What could he do? He could go up to someone and say, "Hi, I want to play." Or he could say, "Would you like a turn?" Or he could try and make a friend and say hi. What if there was no one to play with? What could Teddy do? And then we're into role playing, right? But we're using this third party. We're using Teddy to help our kids. So utilize this. This is powerful and it's helping our kids deal with hard things. You're not alone. If your child is struggling, just know that you're not alone. Lots of kids have, hard times. They have lots of feelings, and it could be at the beginning of the school year or something randomly could happen. Maybe they're nervous about something changing at school. It could be something like the teacher's reorganizing the desks. And now I'm nervous because I'm sitting beside someone else and I don't know that person. And what if, right? And we go right back to the role playing. So those are some of the things that I think would be really helpful for you. Hopefully, at least one of these is something you can hold on to and maybe keep in your back pocket. You can utilize this, share these tips with friends and family. Please share this podcast out. I would love that. If you could share this with all the parents, in your sphere of influence, I would appreciate it. Families Matter Most only grows by word of mouth. That's it. That is all we do as marketing. It's word of mouth. So anytime that you can refer any parent to Families Matter Most, I am so grateful. Now, if you're thinking, I would really like some help, but I think I need more customized, like I want to talk to Jen about my specific family. I want to talk to her about this person and myself. I feel so stressed out and overwhelmed. I feel like I'm failing my kids. I feel like I'm a bad mom. If that's you, then we need to have a strategy call. Because there's group coaching that I think you would love, because we're going to talk about the issues, the parenting stuff, the behavior stuff, the kids, but you're going to see that you're not alone and that all of us struggle to different varying degrees of feeling like we're failing our kids and we don't know what we're doing and we worry about whether or not we're doing the right thing. And it's really awesome to have a community of people that are cheering you on. It is amazing. I love the Families Matter Most community. We are a group of parents that literally are rocking this parenting thing. We're not perfect. But we are rocking it. We are reaching the hearts of our kids. We are transforming our home life. We're learning how to be fully present at work and not feel guilty about it, and fully present at home and not feel guilty about it. We're learning how to do all of these things, and I can't wait to have you join our community. So book that strategy call and let's see what will help you.
Families Matter Most with Jen Dean, part of the Saskatchewan Podcast Network.